Chapter 8, Black and White. The designated place alluded to on the card was one of the largest and most well-known racetracks in all of Calvert. Part of its fame was due to the fact that it permitted gambling on its races, and this attracted a large number of visitors. Furthermore, today was one of the track's biggest races of the year. A day where many highly skilled teams of racers gathered to compete. It was a popular event, and the number of spectators was even greater than usual. The payout for those who gambled on the races were bigger as a result too. Stepping out onto the track, Jack sighed. Surely brings back memories. As he surveyed the familiar grounds, he found himself reminiscing about the times King had brought him and Leonard here to hone their gambling instincts all those years ago. Leonard was the one who had predicted winners correctly the most often. He had spent a lot of time analyzing the outcomes of past races and bet large sums on the cars most likely to win. As a result of relying on safe bets like these though, his payouts tended to be comparatively low. King often used to laugh at him for it, always remarking, "Oh, what's the fun in that?" King meanwhile used his brilliant instincts and power of observation to guide him and successfully predict the outcome of one race after another. Of three of them, it was he who consistently earned the most mirror. For Jack's part, his interest lay in winning big on a single bet. He lost money far more than the other two, but occasionally displayed even greater gambling intuition than the king himself, and sometimes won over 100 times the mirror he bet. While he stood there mulling over those decade-old wins and losses, several men in black suits approached him. Presumably, they were Leonard's subordinates. "We lost his called you," one said politely. Jack followed. Eventually, he found himself in a VIP room, encased in thick glass. It gave the occupants inside a very up-close and personal view of the racetrack outside. And it said Leonard, Nike, and loosely bound Hell. Hell! Without thinking, he made it to dash toward her, but was quickly stopped by the man who brought him there. Each held a gun. "Oh no need to be so hasty," Leonard laughed. "I'm glad you could make it, Jack. I've got some real fun in store for you today." "Leonard, you son of a bitch!" Jack's furious expression was a stark contrast to Leonard's playful tone. "Finally saying what you truly think about me, huh, Jack?" "I'm glad." Leonard looked genuinely satisfied. Jack shot a glance over in Nike's direction. "I can't believe you're seriously helping him with this." "I'm afraid so," she replied simply before drawing closer to Leonard. "As I'm sure you've already worked out, our name is the Joker that King left Hell over there." He'll continue turning the jewel from his necklace over and over again between his fingers. Jack had indeed surmised as much. When Jack won the battle against King 7 years prior, King had given him a code of sorts that he wanted him to pass on to Hell. The code was intended to unlock the Joker the King had once secretly kept on him. At the time, Jack hadn't understood the meaning of what he was being asked to do, but he did now. King was well known in the underworld. He had all kinds of connections, but those ties weren't just limited to a salary of players. Many of the people he was connected to moved between inside and outside of the underworld. Chairman Tech. "Tell me, Jack," Leonard said. "If the underworld is black and the world outside is white, which do you think the world of politics is?" Jack snorted. "Hell if I know." Ich würde sagen, damit ist er ganz recht. Hell. "As black as can be," Leonard said matter-of-factly, which is also quite true. He made an offhand gesture. King was a smart man, a calculating man. "This true here? This is a memory course and one full of information on the people he knew. People in the criminal underworld, public faces who have connections in it themselves. The power of this information was is nothing short of incredible. I intend to use it to keep me moving up the ranks as a politician. And for that, Jack, continue, I need a code that you, and only you, know." Jack was silent for a moment. "I'm surprised to know all of that. I take it this was your doing, Nike." "But of course," she confirmed. "I want him to spread his wings and fly too, after all." "Spread his wings and fly," Jack repeated with a disbelieving sigh. "That's what they call this? Preying on people, King's daughter no less? For a bit of political advantage?" Leave the data behind to protect Hell from harm. What's the point in being promoted if you have to take advantage of a father's love for his daughter to do it? Jack's word resonated strongly with Hell, but they fell on deaf ears when it came to Leonard and Nike. I can't say I don't have a soft spot for the idealism of yours, Nike said finally, but if you're afraid of using others for your own goals, you're never going to get anywhere in life. If I remain a powerless child. Leonard laughed. Forget it. No amount of logic will get through to him. Still, I'd feel guilty taking everything from you without completely beating you into submission first. Gotta give you a chance to fight back after all. So here's what I propose, Jack. We have a little gambling competition. If you win, you can have Hal back. If I win, you will give me that coat. Simple, right? Jack considered. Leonard was smart, but he was also very cautious. It was clear from his aura of confidence that he was pretty certain that he would win. Jack had no intention of backing down. Thus began their great wager over the outcome of the day's races with Hell's fate on the line. Chapter 9. Good and Evil. There's roughly an hour until the first race of the day was scheduled to begin, and so they agreed to use their time to formulate their strategies. Jack was led to another room by Leonard's man. He was also accompanied by Hell, who would serve as his advisor. Another advisor would naturally be Nike. I tell you, just running away is not an option. I mean, I'm free and all, I said once in the room. Jack shook his head. Even if he did manage to get away, which isn't especially likely, he was not the kind of guy to just let this go. If this method doesn't work, he would just do something worse. Worse for us, of course. Yeah, I suppose you're alright, Hell said. Okay, forget it. Just had to ask. Jack had noted, however, the odds of them being able to run away weren't particularly promising to begin with. As Leonard's men were likely to be everywhere, they pondered their predicament for a moment. Hell broke the heavy silence. Wait, Jack, has Leonard always been a bad guy like that? Jack couldn't help but smile slightly at the childish way she phrased her question. As far as he was concerned, the vast majority of gamblers, himself included, were to some degree or another bad guys. He knew what she meant, though. Both he and King had been part of the criminal underworld, but they had their morals and lines they wouldn't, under any circumstances, cross. Back in the day, that had been true for Leonard and Nike too, but no. So they weren't then? I wonder what changed them, Ham mused. Jack had a pretty good idea of the answers. King's death 7 years prior. After that, Jack had lost his drive, his passion. His despondency had in turn caused Nike to become disappointed in him and leave his side. Leonard, meanwhile, found a new life in his own, away from gambling. Again. It wasn't long after that the news of Leonard's move to politics reached Jack's ears. It was a transition that made sense to Jack, too. Leonard had always been one who loved flashiness, loved to stand out. In a short time, though, less pleasant rumors began to spread about him. The whispers never left the realm of hearsay, but the content was enough to make Jack concerned. Bribes, suspicions involving organized crime. It was often said that power corrupted, but Jack hadn't expected of someone he knew so well. Marguerite's pretty though, Hell said abruptly. Sure you're completely over her? Flustered Jack could only gape for a second before stuttering. What makes you think I wouldn't be? Of course I am. His expression told a different story though, and Hell immediately regretted pressing him on the subject. Anyway, Jack said, this isn't going to be easy while he has Nike on his side. There are many who call her the goddess of victory for the luck she brings to men. Goddess of victory, huh? Guessing you're one of those men too, Victory Jack. You can't deny it. She was completely right. Nike's gambling skills were just as good as Jack or Leonard's. And whenever she and Jack had worked as a team, they had never been defeated. Hell looked intrigued when he mentioned their teamwork. You guys worked Griffs together? He nodded. It seemed as though there was more she wanted to ask, but she dropped it and changed the subject. Yeah, I'm going to look at all the race data they gave us then. Nah, I follow the races here as it is, so I pretty much know all the stuff already. Besides, numbers tell the whole story. You gotta get a read of the atmosphere out on the track if you really want to score big. Looks like you have to wing the first one blind though. A quick glance at the clock confirmed this dismay. Start of the first race was rapidly approaching. Chapter 10. The rules. 15 minutes before the first race was scheduled to start, Jack and Hal made their way back to the VIP room where they came face to face with Leonard and Nike again. The rule of the competition was simple. Each side will begin with 100,000 mira. For each race, each side must purchase one betting ticket. No more, no less. Furthermore, 12 orbal cars would compete in each race. The type of betting tickets available, meanwhile, were as follows. The first, show. To win, the chosen car needed to come in either first, second, or third place. This bet type had the highest chance of winning, and as a result, the payout was the lowest as well. Win. To win, the chosen car needed to come in first. This bet type was less likely to be successful than a show bet, but still relatively likely compared to the others. As such, the potential winnings were relatively low. Exacta. To win, the chosen two cards needed to come in first and second place. The bettor had to also accurately predict which came first and which came second. This bet was one of the more difficult ones, and as such, potential winnings were relatively high. The trifecta. Similar to an exacta, except the bettor needed to predict in order which card would come first, second, and third. This bet type was the least likely to be successful, and therefore paid the highest dividends. Exacta box. Like an exacta, the bettor needed to predict the cars that would come first and second. Unlike a regular exacta, however, these could be in either order. This bet type was more likely to pay out than an exacta, but because of that, it paid less as well. Trifecta box. Like a trifecta, except the three cars could come in any order, as long as one comes first, one second, and one third. This paid out more than an exacta box, but less than a regular trifecta. Jack and Leonard would each buy a ticket and then show it to the other before the race began. There was no limit to the amount of mirror that each could bet on one race, so long as they could afford to bet it. If either of them ran out of mirror, the other would be the victor. In all, 7 races were to take place today, 4 in the first half and 3 in the second. The races in the second half, the last in particular, paid the highest dividends. Each race usually took about 10 to 15 minutes. Every car was also obliged to make at least one pit stop to charge their car's EP and change tires. Ich finde schön, wie Cars auch EP als Ressource haben und nicht nur unsere Charaktere in Fights. Completing these actions swiftly and efficiently added another element of challenge to the competition. Large groups and corporations sponsor the teams participating in the race, and the results had implications not just for the teams themselves, but for countless powerful figures and groups in the Republic who used the races as a proxy for their pride and reputations. The winning teams were also rewarded with a vast amount of mira. The rules confirmed and agreed upon, Jack and Leonard purchased their first betting tickets, and a battle between them finally began. Chapter 11, the first half. Before the beginning of the first race, Jack and Leonard showed one another what betting tickets they had purchased. Jack, after asking Hal for opinion, eventually settled on placing 10,000 mirror on a trifecta of car 5, 1 and 3. His reasoning was that cars 5 and 1 had the highest total number of races won, while 3 had shown a lot of potential in recent races. This part was relatively safe and grounded in logic, but with just enough of an element of unpredictability to keep things interesting. Seeing his choice, Leonard laughed, remarking, "Someone hasn't changed." His ticket, meanwhile, was an exacta box on cards 1 and 3, on which he had placed a 20,000 mirror bet. Jack was surprised that Leonard, he knew, would have gone for an exacta box on cards 1 and 5, or perhaps pushed his luck slightly and gone for an exacta on cars 5 and 1. Leonard, however, had defied expectations by going for 1, the second most popular car, and the recently successful car 3. If anything, Jack thought that was the kind of bet King would have made. Realizing what was on Jack's mind, Leonard's smile widened. My time in politics has taught me a lot of things, Jack. 50 minutes later, the result of the first race came in. Car 3 had come in first place, followed by 1, and Car 5 in third. Car 3 had, it seemed, shown its potential yet again. As a result of the outcome, Leonard won his bet, while Jack lost. Jack's total mirror decreased to 90,000 mirror, while Leonard increased to almost 150,000. I giggled. Seemed to be off to a good start. Leonard drew her in close and whispered in here. All thanks to you. Jack averted his eyes. Hal tugged on his sleeve to get his attention. Don't worry, Jack. We're only just getting started. No matter what she said, though, there was a 60,000 mirror difference in their totals right off the bat, and that was a significant difference. The second race began. Jack would again place 10,000 mirror on a trifecta, while Leonard went with a much more certain show bet. This time, however, he placed all of the 50,000 mirror he had won from the first race on it. What's more, Jack's bet fell short and his pool of mirror dropped to 80,000. Leonard, meanwhile, was successful a second time and boosted his earnings to over 170,000. Leonard now had twice the amount that Jack did. The third race began. For a third time, Jack had placed 10,000 mirror on a trifecta. Leonard went for a slightly more risky bet than usual and wagered 20,000 mirror on the next sector. This time, both men lost their bets. Finally, it was time for the last race in the first half to begin. Jack, seemingly undeterred by his continual losses, once again stayed 10,000 mirror on a trifecta. Leonard could only sigh at Jack's refusal to learn from his mistakes, but Jack paid him no mind. For his part, Leonard went for another exacta, but this time he placed 30,000 mirror on it. Leonard won his bet, and Jack lost his. The race over, the first half came to an end. Jack was left with only 60,000 mirror, while Leonard had increased his winnings to over 240,000 mirror, roughly 4 times the amount Jack had left. Luck sure seems to be on my side today, huh, Jack? Leonard taunted. Jack said nothing. There was a roughly hour-long break between the first and second halves. After beckoning Hal to follow him, Jack walked quickly out of the room and over to their waiting area. Barely through the doorway, Hal threw up her hands and cried, "What are we gonna do, Jack? If you don't turn things around fast, we're screwed and we need to start making safer bets next time," and Jack cut her off. Nah, even if we were to win bets like that, then they're not gonna be enough to close the gap between us. As soon as we start thinking like that, this gambit's as good as lost. Sure, but still... Contrary to Jack's seeming casualness, however, he didn't really have any better ideas than Hal did. He was racking his brain for one just as much as she was. What he did know was the gap between he and Leonard was too great for them to be able to win based on instinct alone. Hal suddenly brightened. Oh yeah, I did notice something that stood out in the race data. As a general rule of thumb, betting on popular and proven teams tended to lead to relatively low payouts if they won, while unpopular and generally unsuccessful teams gave much greater payouts. Races held at this track were somewhat different though. In particular, major events like the one currently underway had higher than normal payout rates, meaning that bettors received much more than they otherwise would. As an example of this, generally teams that consistently lost the colony paid the highest dividends on the off chance that they won. And as far from deterring bettors, this often attracted lots of people who wanted to bet on underdogs and win big. In theory, large numbers of people betting on such underdogs would make the potential payouts decrease, but the payout rates were adjusted to make sure they didn't fall too much in order to keep things exciting for the gamblers who were betting. Even factoring in all of that, Hal went on, there was one team whose potential payout seemed odd. Jack had a look, and sure enough, he found himself agreeing. It wasn't odd to the extent that the average person would notice, but she wasn't wrong. The driver for that team was a man named Carlos, a real veteran racer who had the current official record for the most consecutive victories. It was an achievement that had earned the nickname Legend. In recent years, however, he had stopped winning at all. a fact that had led to more and more people calling him legendary loser instead. He was also an old friend of King's. Jack himself had a man too. Jack chewed over her findings for a minute and said, "Oh, thanks for the tip, Hal. I'm just gonna step out for a bit, okay? As soon as our break's over, head back on over to the VIP room without me." "Wait a second," she shouted after him, but he paid her no mind and strode nonchalantly out of the room. The second half. 10 minutes before the start of the 5th race, Jack had yet to return. "I hope he hasn't gone on and run off," said Leonard. His voice heavy was gone. "I wouldn't dream of it," Hal retorted. I laughed. "Apparently not. Here he comes now." Jack ambled over. "Sorry," said. "Had to take a leak." Jack's carefree manner seemed to annoy Leonard, but it filled Hal with relief. He had been too subdued in the first half to see him back to his old self gave her confidence. Until she remembered that they hadn't even brought their betting ticket. Exasperated, she hustled him to the counter to get one. The 5th race began. Continuing his pattern from the first half, Jack went for a trifecta. Like the first half, however, he only bet for 5,000 mirror on it. I was thinking you would get all cocky, then you go and lower your bet. Leonard radiated confidence, but deep down, he knew exactly what Jack was doing. Jack was going to conserve as much money as he could until the final race and bet it all on that. Knowing that, he realized he couldn't afford to let up his offensive and decided to bet a massive 100,000 mirror on a win bet. The team he staked his wager on was an outside chance as well. In the end, the team Leonard bet on was victorious, but Jack lost his 5,000 mirror. As a result, Jack was down to a mere 55,000 mirror, while Leonard's total exceeded 500,000. The gap between them continued to grow larger and larger. The 6th race began. Once again, Jack placed 5,000 mirror on a trifecta. Leonard, meanwhile, didn't seem to be feeling especially confident about the race and put a mere 10,000 mirror on a safe exacta box bet. The race that took place was easily the most intensive of the day thus far and had the spectators on the edge of their seat. 6 winners on trifecta tickets earned over 100 times what they bet, but both Jack and Leonard had backed the wrong cars. "When he picked the right cars on that one," cried the frustrated Hal. If Jack shared her dismay, though, he didn't show it. His thoughts were all for the final race. The 7th race of the day was about to begin. Having lost every bet he had made so far, Jack was down to a mere 50,000 mirror. The unwinnings now totaled roughly 500,000 mirror, even though he too had lost the 6th race. In order to catch up, Jack would need to make a bet that paid out over 10 times his wager amount. Even more if Leonard was to win his own bet. Incidentally, the two had agreed not to show each other which betting tickets they had gone for until after the race had ended. This was in order to make things more interesting, according to Leonard anyway. The starting light shifted from red to green and the race that would determine everything began. Natürlich wurde einfach wieder alles nur mit dem letzten Race geregelt. Man muss ja die Tension, egal. man muss es hochhalten. So. Chapter 13, The Price of the Soul. It really became apparent that this final battle was going to be even more intense and unpredictable than the 6th race had been. First, Car 4, which had been the favorite to win, had to withdraw partway through due to mechanical trouble. The second and third most popular cars, 3 and 6 respectively, had also their own share of problems, and while they were able to continue the race, their performance was far from their full capabilities. Thanks to these technical difficulties, there were essentially only 9 of the original 12 cars still in the race. Of those 9, Car 1 had the highest odds of winning, but Car 5 stubbornly refused to allow it to overtake, and Car 1 was unable to get into the lead. The cars at the front of the race were 7, 2 and 12. While they generally held that order, they were constantly jockeying for position. Furthermore, Car 12 was driven by none other than Carlos, the legendary loser. That in itself generated a lot of excitement, as it had been quite some time since they had been anywhere near this close to winning a major race. As the race neared the end, the final corner it would determine and everything approached. Just as they began the bend, a gap opened up between cars 7 and 12. As the nerve overlaps in concentration, the drivers of those two cars left a space wide enough for Carlos to sneak through. And he seized his chance. With a deft hand at the wheel, car 12 shot through and took the lead. The race ended. Car 12 was victorious, while car 7 entered onto second place and car 2 came in third. He had watched all of those unfold with a sour look. "Did you lose?" asked Hal. Your hopes, however, were quickly dashed. He shook his head and laughed. No, just wasn't expecting our legend to snag first place like that. I admit if he had the goods to get into the top 3 though. That's my wind. You see, I bet on a trifecta box with cars 2, 7 and 12. The payout's 120 times what I staked. Checking over stunned speechless. To make matters worse, Leonard has bet 400,000 mirror, meaning that we received 48 million from this ticket. He watched their faces with indisguised smugness. Looks like you realized now that you have never stood a chance in Gehenna of beating me. I giggled at his shoulder. Sure seems that way. The pair was confidence, sure that they had won. Her face fell, then she stuck her tongue out at them. Nah, I just wanted you to think that. Jake grinned at the puzzled look on Leonard's face. What the lady said. You're just pretending to be surprised. Then you didn't. Yeah, it couldn't seem to work out what they were trying to imply. But I quickly understood. Her painted lips compressed into a flat line. I put my money on a trifecta, she clarified. 12, 7, and 2. Get it now? That's 1,100 times what I bet. This time, it was Leonard and Nike who were stunned into silence. Tickets that paid out over 100 times that the bet made were rare enough, even at this racetrack. But tickets that paid out over 1,000 times the bet were almost unheard of. As a result of his bet, Jack had won 55 million mirror. A total pot that was significantly higher than Leonard's 48,100,000 winnings. What? How did you? It was Jack's turn to laugh at the furious expression on Leonard's face. He realized that asking me that is basically admitting wrongdoings on your part, right? He said. But if you really want to know, I tell you. It's simple. I bribed Carlos. You did what? I got a friend of mine to get a ticket just like this one. The money for it was 100,000 mirror. He'd give it on the spot in my name. Multiplied by yeah, times 1,100, and you get 110 million. I told Carlos he could have the lot. But I've been sending him. Why would you throw all of that away for a one-off sum like that? However big? Jack made a sinking sound. Keine Ahnung, was für ein Geräusch das sein soll. Like Kaching? Oder? You might be able to buy people's hearts with money for a while, Leonard, but there's no amount of mirror that will let you buy their souls. The fact that Carlos accepted my offer is pretty solid proof of that. I'm guessing he wanted out a long time ago. How do you know? Leonard gestured angrily, but then encouragingly added, pretty impressed though. Admittedly, he wasn't alone, but it takes some skill to emulate the outcome of races from right at the back. Our legend has lost its touch. Our legend hasn't lost its touch, that's for sure. It was at this point that Hell spoke up, but if you'd arranged the outcome from the start, why did you go for a box of as a trifecta, and why not go all in? And bet your last 100,000 mirror too. I walked away. Well, just to be on the safe side. Jack's suspicion had proved right. Leonard knew as well as anyone that it was impossible to completely remove all unpredictable elements from a bet. As such, his way to excise as many as humanly possible and then take the surest and safest path to victory. He didn't change at all. Makes sense, I said. Too bad it cost you the victory though. If you'd gone all in, you would have won too. Leonard said, snap back around. What? He did something in his head and realized the truth. If he had bet his entire 500,000 mirror, he would have won 60 million mirror, comfortably beating Jack's 55 million. It's a mistake, Leonard blurted out. A mix-up. Subordinate asked to buy the ticket, must have bet the wrong amount. He didn't lose, compulsively lose, said Leonard. Nike interjected coolly. You missed the most popular car in the race, didn't you? You did an excellent job for fighting the evidence, but no amount of fighting is going to be enough when someone already knows what you're going to do and can watch out for you. She pointed a perfect lacquered nail at him. You've been getting away with things for a long time, but not anymore. Thors stared at her. What are you talking about? Leonard sputtered. What are you suggesting? It's very fast to just show you, he said. Come on in. At Nike's signal, a number of men in black suits entered the VIP room. They weren't Leonard's men, though. Instead, they surrounded him and his underlings. Is there an end of the line for you, Leonard? We've already taken the rest of your men into custody. Leonard wasn't the only one baffled by what was happening. Nike, what are you? Began a puzzle check. With a laugh, Nike took a pair of glasses from her pocket, placed them on her nose, and addressed him directly. I should probably introduce myself, shouldn't I? Being an actress isn't my primary occupation. I'm actually a member of Rocksmith Agency, an intelligence group which answers directly to the president. Kanal could only gape at her in shock. Yep. Genau dieselbe Rocksmith Intelligence Agency, die Killiger Roran führt. Also, mich würde es nicht wundern, wenn wir vielleicht früher oder später mal Nike in Calvert sehen werden. Dementsprechend finde ich das relativ cool, dass wir das schon hier in dem Büchern finden. Und hier comes the finale, the aftermath. Leonard was led away without a struggle by Nike's elite subordinates. He stood accused of fixing all 7 of the races that took place that day, as well as hindering many of the teams who took part in them and damaging their property, along with a host of other crimes. However, it seemed as though he would have a lot to answer for. Unfortunately, it seemed that Carlos, the winner of the 7th race, was also to be tried as a co-conspirator for having gone along with Leonard's plans. A week later, everything was back to normal in a bar where Jack and Hal spent much of the time in the Eastern Quarter. Everything except the fact that Jack was actually reading a newspaper. Anyway, he was looking at an article about Leonard's arrest. Hal, meanwhile, was pretending to be a bartender, or rather practicing being one. Oh yeah, he said all of a sudden. Hey Jack, what happened to the 55 million mirror you won anyway? He shook his head sadly. Gone like a bad bet, to say. Jack took it. It was regarded as mirror obtained through illegal means, or some such. Ah, too bad. You're telling me the 110 million mirror he had a friend when, meanwhile, had been confiscated, but Jack had already made up his mind that it would go to Carlos one day. It was his after all. Sure you're okay with handing over that memory card store? Jack asked her. She nodded. Yeah, the last thing I want is someone else after me because of it. After Leonard was reprimanded, Jack had left it up to Hal to decide what she wanted to do with the memory cards full of his incriminating information that King had left her. She elected to hand it over to Nike. King had intended to act as a shield for Hal if she ever ended up getting involved in the underworld, but that very safeguard had placed her life in danger. And now an even larger number of people knew it existed. It was simply too dangerous for her to hold on to. Originally, the only ones who knew about the memory card's existence were Jack and Nike, although only Jack had known that it had been incorporated into the necklace. Jack had only found out when Hal told her in the bar. Now that everything was over, Jack couldn't help but suspect that Nike's true aim all along had been to obtain that and not Leonard's arrest. So what was the code to open the thing anyway? I asked. You really wanna know? Sure do. Jake cleared his throat and burst. It was, my beloved Hal. And now I met a more doting father than your old man. Taken completely by surprise by his answer, a single tear rolled down Hal's cheek. As a gambler, she was first-rate, but in every other respect, she was still an ordinary girl. She wiped the tear away and then spoke again, her tone carrying no trace of the sadness she must feel. Hey Jack, I've got a favor I'd like to ask you. Just as she spoke, however, the door opened again to let out its usual piercing shriek. Through it came Nike wearing the glasses she had been when they last saw her in a pair of casual jeans instead of a fancy dress. Without preamble, she said, "Hey there, Jack, I've got a proposal for you. How does working again as a team strike you?" "Hey, I was just about to ask him that," cried Hal, not wanting to miss her chance. Jack sighed. The future, it seemed, was full of trouble. Wait, ist das eine Novel, wo es einfach nur darum geht, dass halt Nike, Jack und Hal für Rocksmith Agency rekrutiert werden? Dein fucking Ernst? Und das heißt, dass die alle unter Killikai jetzt arbeiten zurzeit? Interesting. Sehr interessant. Das finde ich cool. Mal sehen, ob wir sie in Calvert antreffen werden oder ob wir das in Calvert irgendwie nochmal über Ecken und Wege hören werden. Würde mich aber nicht wundern. Und ja. Wie gesagt, mir ging es nur darum, für heute zu lesen, damit wir beim nächsten Mal dann weitermachen können und Richtung Finale gehen können und unsere allerletzten Preparations wirklich machen können. Und das dann diesmal auch wieder on-stream. Und damit, ich hoffe, euch hat wieder mal eine der Lesestunden gefallen. Das war jetzt die 7. Wir haben noch ein paar vor uns. Aber das ist auch mal ein schön interessanter Break mittendrin, so gegen Ende mal so eine Art Lesestunde zu machen. Finde ich auch ganz lustig. Und ja, wir sehen uns beim nächsten Mal. Bis dahin. Ciao. Und bye bye.